Chapter 1, Section 3, Conflicts and Misrepresentations of the Text. Perhaps the most revealing doctrinal conundrum is Islam's simultaneous claim to eternal truth and its condemnation of the so-called pre-Islamic period of ignorance, Jahiliyyah. In asserting both, Islam rewrites history. Islamic doctrine holds that Islam did not begin with Muhammad, but is the original and only valid way of life since the creation of mankind. According to the Koran, Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, and even Jesus were all Muslims, not by chronology, but by their submission to Allah. Quote, indeed, the religion in the sight of Allah is Islam, Quran 3:19. And, quote, Abraham was neither a Jew nor a Christian, but he was one inclining towards truth, a Muslim, Quran 3:67. Yet the same doctrine frequently refers to the pre-Islamic period of ignorance as a time of moral corruption and idolatry prior to Muhammad's revelations. Muhammad is quoted as saying, indeed, Allah has removed from you the pride of the arrogance of the age of ignorance, Jahiliyyah, Muslim 934a. And Sharia condemns the affairs of the pre-Islamic period of ignorance, including music, crucifixes, tribal loyalty, and female autonomy. Within Islamic theology, this tension is resolved by claiming that mankind repeatedly strayed from Islam, requiring prophets to restore it, culminating in Muhammad as the final messenger. But from a non-Muslim perspective, the contradiction is inescapable. If Islam truly existed from the beginning, then the idea of a pre-Islamic period is incoherent. If Islam must be restored again and again, then it is neither final nor perfect. Islam claims to be timeless, yet requires historical revision to sustain that claim. It condemns the past as pre-Islamic, even while insisting that Islam has always been there. This is not a minor doctrinal glitch. It is historical erasure. Islamic supremacy depends on denying the very past it claims to complete. The West, rather than challenging this contradiction, now participates in its enforcement through silence, legislation, and self-censorship. Islamic doctrine seeks not only territorial control, but narrative supremacy, a goal increasingly advanced with the cooperation of Western institutions. As George Orwell wrote in 1984, quote, who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past, unquote. Contradiction in the texts, selective versus strategic use. The internal contradiction between Islam's claimed timelessness and its condemnation of pre-Islamic history is not merely philosophical, it is textual. The Quran itself presents opposing instructions on matters as fundamental as violence, tolerance, and belief. Some verses are peaceful, others command war. All are considered the literal word of Allah. To resolve these contradictions, Islamic jurisprudence developed the doctrine of abrogation, where later verses override earlier ones, even though both remain in the text. A well-known contradiction in the Quran is between verse 2:256 and verse 2:191. 2:256 reads, let there be no compulsion in religion. 2:191 reads, kill them wherever you find them. Apologists often highlight 2:256 as proof of Islamic tolerance, but the historical context recorded in both Hadith and Tafsir confirms the timing as early Medina, when Muhammad's position was still relatively weak. It addressed the pre-Islamic vows of Ansari women who promised to raise their surviving children as Jews. When the Jewish tribe of Banu Nadir was expelled, the Muslim families wanted their children back. The verse functioned as a concession to allow retrieval without forced conversion. Ibn Kathir's Tafsir. This verse was revealed regarding the Ansar, who vowed in pre-Islamic days to raise surviving children as Jews. Hadith. When Banu and Nadir were expelled, they said, we shall not leave our children. So Allah the Exalted revealed, let there be no compulsion in religion. Dawood 26:82. But the very next verse, Quran 2:257 declares, as for those who disbelieve, their friends are tagged. They bring them from light into darkness. They will abide in the fire forever. And not long after, in the same verse, 191 orders, kill them wherever you find them. This verse comes later in the Medina period after Muhammad had begun military campaigns and consolidated power. Like many Quranic contradictions, both are considered true. But the doctrine of supersession, Koran 2:106, prioritizes later, more militant verses. This principle is called Nasikh wa Mansukh, the abrogators and the abrogated. Earlier verses are sometimes described as abrogated or superseded by later verses, but all are considered the unaltered, perfect word of Allah. They can be used strategically, depending on circumstance. This allows peaceful verses to be cited when Islam is weak and militant verses when it is strong, a shift from spiritual focus to political dominance. Quran 1096, to you be your religion and to me my religion. Quran 929, fight those who do not believe in Allah. Medina, strong. Quran 2217, fighting therein the holy months is a great transgression, but averting from the way of Allah and disbelief in him are greater evil. Abrogated by Quran 2216, jihad, holy fighting in Allah's cause, is ordained for you. These chronologically, not numerically, later verses provide the basis of legal rulings in manuals like Reliance of the Traveler regarding jihad, governance, and the treatment of non-Muslims. Peaceful verses may appear in dawah or diplomacy, but carry no legal weight in Sharia. Western observers often misinterpret such contradictions through the lens of their own society, which is generally shaped by Judeo-Christian values. A good example is the reaction to a billboard in Tehran that appeared to support Christianity by displaying the Last Supper, seen as a protest against a 2024 LGBTQ-themed Olympic mural in Paris. The interpretation given this billboard is that it shows Islam's support for Christianity. But this overlooks Isa, Jesus, is recognized in Islamic doctrine as a Muslim prophet, not the Son of God. Here is what Islamic doctrine says about the return of Jesus. Muhammad said, there is no prophet between me and him, that is Jesus. He will descend to the earth. When you see him, recognize him. A man of medium height, reddish hair, wearing 2 light yellow garments, looking as if drops were falling down on his head, though it will not be wet. He will fight the people for the cause of Islam. He will break the cross, kill swine, and abolish jizya, protection money paid by non-Muslims to be allowed to live in an Islamic state and keep their faith. Allah will perish all religions except Islam. He will destroy the Antichrist and will live on the earth for 40 years, and then he will die. The Muslims will pray over him. Dawood 43:24. Numerous hadith clearly state that Jesus will return to impose Islam, not promote interfaith harmony. Only those who follow Islam will be permitted to live under the rule he establishes. All other religions must perish. That Jesus is a Muslim prophet who will return to eliminate Christianity is reason enough to question the reliability and veracity of the Quran. Yet it remains a doctrine followed by over 2 billion people. For non-Muslims, understanding what the doctrine says is not an academic exercise. It is a necessary step towards recognizing the implications for their own rights and safety. Section 4, choosing a Quran. When a law, Sharia, governs not only believers, but also affects non-Muslims, it becomes essential to understand what that law says. Choosing a Quran requires careful consideration. A translation with commentary is especially useful as it provides insight into the intended meaning behind the text. The Noble Quran, Halali Khan translation, is the most widely distributed translation in the Islamic world. It includes commentary drawn from authoritative early scholars such as Tabari, Ibn Kathir, and Bukhari, which I quote here. I chose the Halali Khan version many years ago and read it from beginning to end. The Quran is extremely repetitive, but not that difficult to understand, a fact noted by even by Muslim scholars, and one that will become evident throughout this book. While the Quran mentions some biblical figures, its content and message differ significantly from the Judeo-Christian scriptures. In one example, Job is recorded as striking his wife. Though Muslims believe the Quran is the divine revelation of Allah transmitted via the angel Gabriel, it's worth noting that every word was uttered by Muhammad himself over the course of just 23 years. Another translation with important commentary is the Critical Quran by Robert Spencer. Based on a modernized version of Pickthall's translation, It highlights passages that are most problematic for the non-Muslim, including exhortations to jihad warfare and Islamic legal rulings about women. It also addresses textual issues such as the Quran's ordering by length rather than chronology, which obscures the doctrine's historical development. Here are two examples of Koran commentary showing why these additions matter to both Muslims and non-Muslims alike. The first example shows why non-Muslims have a reason to examine what the Quran says about them. It's from chapter 9 of the Quran, verse 38. O you who believe, what is the matter with you that when you are asked to march forth in the cause of Allah, jihad, you cling heavily to the earth? And the footnote to that says, nobody would wish to come back to this world except the martyr, who on seeing the superiority of martyrdom would like to come back to the world and get killed again in Allah's cause. Bukhari, Volume 4. The second example highlights why Islamic authorities may be eager to assert control by enforcing Sharia. This is from chapter 2, verse 3. Who believe in the Gaib, that's the unseen, and perform al-salat, prayers, and spend out of what we have provided for them, brackets, give zakat, spend on themselves, their parents, their children, their wives, and also give charity to the poor, and also in Allah's cause jihad. Now the footnote to that one reads, each and every Muslim, male or female, is obliged to offer his salat, prayers. Order your children to salat prayers at the age of 7 and beat them about it at the age of 10. The chief of a family, town, tribe, etc., and the Muslim rulers of a country are held responsible before Allah in case of non-fulfillment of this obligation by the Muslims under their authority. Many Islamic scholars oppose non-Muslims having access to the Quran as Sharia discourages revealing its contents to them. Yet the worldwide growth of Islam, coupled with the reach of electronic communication, has made such access far more common. From Reliance of the Traveler, if the Quran is being purchased for someone, it is obligatory that that person be Muslim. The same is true of books of hadith and books containing the words and deeds of early Muslims. Quran in this context means any work that contains some of the Quran, even a slight amount. Again, when one fears that a non-Muslim may touch it, the Quran, or that it may come into contact with some filth, then one must pick it up if there is no safe place for it. Unquote. Similarly, Muslims have historically been accused of kufr or disbelief for questioning the authority and interpretation of imams, mullahs, and sheikhs. Today, independent inquiry via online and other resources is harder for these authorities to monitor in spite of rules to the contrary. Quote, what befits the common people and vast majority of those learning or possessing sacred knowledge is to refrain from discussing the subtleties of scholastic theology, lest corruption difficult to eliminate find its way into their basic religious convictions. Unquote. Ignorance has never benefited any society, especially when it comes to understanding Islam. Al-Tabari provides an example from Persia during the Umar's reign from 635 to 636, when military expeditions were sent out to establish pacts aimed at collecting jizya, or protection money. The doctrine would be given to them, but only after they converted to Islam. From Tabari, the Persian king then said, ask them, why did you come here? What induced you to attack us and covet our country? Did you muster courage against us because we left you alone and were busy with other matters? Answer, this is a bad thing, but not as bad as the alternative. If you refuse to pay, it will be war. If you respond and embrace our religion, we shall leave you with the book of God, Allah, and teach you its contents, provided that you will govern according to its laws included in it. In the 21st century, we are in a unique position. For the first time in 14 centuries, it is possible to bypass the traditional Islamic gatekeepers and read the source text. This changes everything.